Hey everybody, this is Seth with the Booggie Broadcast. Today, I got my main man, Stephen Allen.
Good to be here.
Dude, how long have we known each other?
A long time.
Years and years.
It was, let's see. I spent the first time I met you, I was friends with Isaiah, your brother. I spent that weekend at your house after camp. I had to be like, 15 or 16? At least a decade.
Yeah, dude. Way over that, I'm sure. Yeah, it's 15 or 16 years. And then, that's the same time you poured Isaiah out of that creek, wasn't it?
I think it was.
No, it was a river, Tickfall River.
I think it was that summer. I don't know if it was that
later.
Maybe it was that weekend.
Because that ends, Blitz ends in the summer.
Yeah, maybe that was. It's so weird because I felt like that happened so much further on in our friendship, and I guess that was really at the very, very beginning.
And it might have been the start.
Because your mom gave me a hug after that, and I thought, like, man, like, I don't know this lady well enough to be like, well, she's like,
you pulled her son out of a river,
and so it was just like,
yeah.
And now she's like, Mom, but yeah,
that's good. So, so we're here at this spot right here. Yeah. Which what you were telling me was crazy. I had no idea. This is the spot, or close to the spot where we spent a few hours
plotting
a
epic prank scare
that backfired, but didn't really backfire.
We got lucky.
We got really lucky.
Yeah.
Luck I don't think is the word. If there's another one above that one, because we planned to scare our friend while he was actually covering for you. Yeah. Which he did not know that.
Right.
So we hid in the dumpster.
Area. All right. So for the listeners who don't understand, so this was back before I was in the military, and I had a janitorial cleaning service, and so a unnamed client of mine in this area here had people go in and clean every night, and it was his night to clean. And so here we were, and we were hiding outside behind the dumpster, waiting for him to show up and clean.
Oh, it took forever
for him to show up.
It took so long.
Long story short,
so long.
We were gonna sneak in. We had baseball bats, Halloween masks,
the good ones too.
And we were going to just we were gonna pose as like I don't know, some punks breaking in and like threaten him. I don't even.
Well, no. You said something. Well, at first you were trying to. I don't know if you do remember this. You were trying to tell him to open the safe or something like that.
No. What we were gonna do is we were gonna confront him, corner him, and then get him to tell us the code to the alarm.
Okay.
Anyway, this whole we were. What I was like at 19.
Well, I mean.
Yeah. I was like
16.
Yeah. And
I remember because I had zero responsibilities.
Yeah. And long story short, he figured out we were there before we got to. He didn't know it was us. He saw us. He saw
you.
He saw
run into the
back
storage
door,
shed.
the back door, in the mask, leather jacket, white rubber gloves, baseball bat.
Oh man!
And so he ran to this hotel.
This exact hotel,
like what, at least 3/4 of a mile.
Unreal. And I had no idea when I booked this place.
Yeah. And then he called the cops. So like, whatever. I mean, I don't remember how many cop cars showed up.
Okay. I was on the edge. Okay, and you were in the back. I'm walking, just normal. I remember this, just normal walking, and this homeboy pulls up with his brush guard and just about taps me. He comes in, hot, stops super close to me. And just is like, starts asking me questions. Okay, we ditched everything.
Yeah, we did. We ditched everything.
This is how many responsibilities.
We saw from the because we were down there, and I could see all the interstate. I can see the bridge going across on the overpass, and I saw at least 3 or 4 lights, cars going, and I was like, snap.
But here's what the crazy thing is: once they got me, I had nothing on me but rubber gloves.
Right.
And the cop was frisking me, and he said, do you have anything on you that might hurt me or whatever? I was like, no.
Right. And you had ditched your mask. You had ditched the baseball bat we had.
And then he pulls out those gloves and he goes, what do you use these for? I was like, cleaning.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, you're like, we're here to clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the time I came out, because we were separated.
Yeah, you didn't know where I was.
We were trying to figure out where Sean went. We didn't know he ran here. We were like, where'd he go? Yeah. And so when I come out, you're in the back of the cop car. They're questioning us.
Dude, I remember
and
I remember having no fear because I was just so like blown. I was just so like I felt so cool. I'm like, I am in the back of this cop car.
Yeah.
I'm just chilling. But I had no ID. I had no cell phone. I had nothing. I was a perfect criminal. I had zero on it. Zero at all.
Yeah.
So, okay, so all that happened. No charges were pressed.
Right.
Sean saw my face. He saw your face. He's like,
what in the world? What are y'all doing here?
What are y'all doing here?
Yeah.
So all that passes over. Well, then our friend was in school for what was he in school for? Was it
Sean?
Yeah.
Like he's a cop now, but
was he in like?
It was like some kind of.
He might have been in the academy, or he was in college. It was a collegiate thing, I think.
Maybe it was like a criminal.
Criminal justice or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't remember. Whatever. Yeah.
He got credits though.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
He got those credits because he actually was involved in a call.
Some kind of yeah. He got to use the experience for class project.
That's crazy.
So yeah, it was. I mean, there's so many more details to that, but like we could sit here and rehash that over your podcast. But it was definitely it was a pivotal point in our relationship. It was very bonding, experience.
That definitely was.
Yeah,
because all three of us remember that. Like to this day, it was a couple of days ago that it happened. It was so good. We had a lot of other crazy cool things that went on. But
you know what I remember most about it is the difference between the reaction of my parents and your parents. Because at the time I was 19 and I remember my parents just could not be more disappointed in what a foolish decision it was.
Yeah.
And then I remember feeling, because I was older than you, I was like, you know what, I'm going to tell your dad. Like, it's not like I'm the one who pulled you into this. I'll talk to your dad and explain what happened. And your dad, I'm just waiting for him to be like, you know, like, wait, so you brought my son, because Sean had a 9mm. I think he had a Glock.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And he had set it on. So we saw him go in with the Glock, and we were still like, because he just always carried it on him, you know, whatever, at night. He's going to these different places, you know, at 2 or 3 in the morning, whatever. We saw it, and we're like, nah, we're still going to scare him. Like, you know, because we're smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so stupid. And so I'm telling him all the story of what happened and trying to like take responsibility for it and apologizing to him. And I'm thinking he's going to, you know, like, hey, look, man, you could have got my son into real trouble. You could have been hurt. And he literally is like, I'm hearing this noise on the other end, and it's him like laughing so hard he can't stop to catch his breath.
Well, to give you credit, you did not know my family as well as you do now.
Right.
So you had no idea what to expect.
Yes.
You know, and I don't think I really knew what to expect either. But him laughing, I mean, I wasn't even really nervous because no one got hurt.
Right.
Know? But to him, for him to see the humor in it, and I think you know he loved that, and my mom too, which was crazy. You know, they both loved that story. I think because we've always been those boys who have either been in casts, have been in stitches,
right?
So I think that they are just so used to something going on,
right?
That they found this humorous because no one did get hurt. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because no one did. No one really got actually, like, you know, we all were fine. You know, we could have gotten hurt, but we didn't.
It was, that's good stuff.
Yeah,
good story.
It was great, man. I love that stuff. I do. I love that stuff. So
what's new? You have your new podcast.
Here
we are.
Yeah, I have my new podcast, the Booggie Broadcast. I'm trying to get my live thing set up. I still didn't figure that out. I will figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm using this system right now. I might switch, but I like how I can pick it up and bring it somewhere.
Yeah, this was really cool.
I'm lucky that this hotel actually had some amenities and stuff, but I like how I can actually pick it up and bring it somewhere. So if I wanted to do one with, you know, in the future with somebody, I can pick up stuff and move it and all that. And I'm gonna try to get on some other platforms and stuff too, and try to get some more guests on and things like that.
And who you've had so far, Sai, who is really just incredible.
Yeah.
You and I have been. In my mind, I'm like, we're like best friends. And then you find out, like, most of the people that are friends with Seth are, you know, like, he's my best friend. Like, you're just that guy. It's a good thing. It's not bad at all. And I'm like, we're super close. And I realized, man, I learned more about Sai listening to y'all's podcast than throughout all the stories and whenever we have, you know, been there at the same time.
Well, I mean, and I really try to break down my walls. But when it comes to my friends, diversity is the key here because we're all different. But also, like, I can't. Okay, so I have all these different friends, but yet I don't differ from friend to friend. So I try to stay my true self, and it is a workout. I don't like when people say, you know, it's a bad thing to be true to yourself, or like whenever they're like saying, you know, live for yourself or things like that. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is being Seth for all of y'all. I feel is more important than me being Seth for my boss or for like someone who's above me or an authority figure, and even probably for myself. So I feel like if I change, like if I'm talking to you this way, but I turn around and talk to Sai a totally different way, I wouldn't feel like I'm being my true self for y'all. Like I would feel like I'm stealing myself from y'all. So I try to be transparent and open, but if you just stop trying and you just like let your guard down and be vulnerable, vulnerability is probably one of the biggest things I think I need to work on. But I let my guard down, and in return, I have great people like you in my life. Because we're friends through bonds and through scenarios, but really because I open my heart up to you when I talk to you.
Well, I think that's what people struggle with. I mean, I'm just listening and trying to, I think that most people, what you said at the beginning is being different around so many different, every time they're around a different person or a different environment, they become someone different. And man, I think that's way more common than you would think, that they just on autopilot when they're in different environment, they just try to adapt to like what they feel like is going to be the most what's the word, the best received version of themselves. But I don't even think they realize it. Well, I mean, and I'm guilty of it.
A lot of people are like you said, they are on autopilot. They just kind of like, okay, we're coming into turbulence, let me switch this. Okay, I'm coming into this group of friends, let me just switch to this. Dude, that's exhausting.
But I think it happens. I think it happens without even realizing it, and so it's not necessarily maybe I don't know, maybe it's still exhausting, but I think it happens so they're so unconscious of it. I think for me, and I would imagine that everyone does it to an extent, and maybe there's certain versions where like it's even healthy to an extent where you're consciously like, hey, I'm with these people, so here's some things I might just out of, but it's as long as it's a conscious decision for whatever. But
I think with first impressions, maybe you kind of tone yourself down a little bit. But if you
we're like really analyzing this, like,
but this is how important it is. Okay. The reason I have so many good people in my life is because all of those good people actually know who I really am.
Well, that's what I was getting at earlier. Is just like, man, I'd rather you just be honest, and there be certain aspects, and there are definitely aspects of like we're really good friends, and there's definitely things that we completely disagree on, but we at least know exactly who the other person is, and you're just being your most honest self, and that I think people appreciate when someone's being real with them.
They do,
and they can tell.
What does it take though to be your honest self? And I think it's the self-awareness thing. I've had many friends for a long time. All my close friends I've been friends with I'm assuming over 8 years. Okay, so everyone who I consider close. But I recently do believe that I've become more self-aware. I've been trying to, die to myself more often in the past 2 years. So for me,
what do you mean? What do you mean die to yourself? Because I feel like the first thing I'm getting is that like, I don't know, the Christian biblical perspective, die to yourself is what I'm interpreting, but I don't think that's what you mean.
So no, when I say like a lot of those things, like, if I say like a biblical reference, what I'm trying to do is that's the only way I can really feel like I can explain it. Excuse me. Because I feel like the Bible does actually give us very good descriptions of things that we do and things that we should do. But who's to say like if it's right or wrong? I think that's to yourself. So when I say die to self, what I'm talking about is not becoming the person I was yesterday because that person wasn't as good as I could be today. And that's what I mean by that.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is I've had all of my close friends for over 5, 8 years, 10 years, some even 16 I mean, I'm 26, and I've had some friends that I've had since I was 12, 13. So, but what I'm trying to say is I've kept them even through my self-awareness phase where I've become more cognitive and more conscious about my inner self without changing, without altering my friendships and things. Not saying that I didn't get rid of some friendships that were toxic over the past 4 or 5 years, but
do you feel like you have changed, though, not because of everyone else, but because of this whole self-awareness journey, and those people have still stayed with you through this whole growing experience, or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, so through that phase, no. And yes, I've changed on the inside. No, I haven't changed how I treat people on the outside. Because I've always felt like I've treated people to the best of my ability, fair. And the reason I don't say treat people good is because people need to be treated fairly. People need
and it's probably not grammatically correct.
Well, I mean, maybe not. Maybe I'm not trying to. Maybe
treat people well.
Yeah. Well, I
grammar Nazi.
Well, what I want is I don't. People say they're not. Some people say they're not people pleasers, and I've always said, well, no, we're all out to please somebody. I'm not a people pleaser. I just want those that have invested in me to get some kind of return out of it. Yes.
Yeah, it's completely different.
Yeah, it's different. But like, I'm not out to, I'm not trying to change the world. I'm not trying to do something.
So this whole, because I feel like I already know where you're going to go, because we've talked about this a million times. Well, where I think it's going to go. So.
Really, a million times?
We've had so this whole, more self-aware, where did that start, and what's like, where did that start for you?
For me, it originated whenever I first started listening to podcasts, and it has to do with a few individuals. But I also want to say it had to do when my brother passed away.
Yes.
Shortly following after that, when Luke passed away, I felt that time stopped, and then my subconscious self came up and said, "Hey, you need to reevaluate yourself."
Yeah.
And how can you reevaluate yourself unless you have a guide or something?
Well, I think we both went through something around a similar time frame in our lives, and I don't even think it was so much like, okay, podcast. And for me, I think one of the big things that just kind of just showed me other perspectives, and I haven't listened to them recently, but really I listened to like the TED Radio Hour, and you're listening to people who like had completely different views, but like just all these different perspectives. But I think it was the experiences that we both went through that we talked about this the other day, about when you're stressed. I don't know how accurate this is, but the description was that when you're stressed, that is because you're in a situation that the current version of you cannot handle. And so it's forcing you to improve, to become a better version. Mm-hmm. And so whenever you go through something that's traumatic, something very trying, it's like, it's putting you under immense stress, and it's like, it's this subconscious like voice inside saying, hey, we're not up to the task right here. The current version, like, you need to grow. And you start like looking outward or inward, whatever. You're trying to improve who you are and trying to grow. And the thing is that if you don't, it's like, I think, okay, here, just growing up, you want to think of yourself. I thought I was like, I'm pretty strong or whatever. Like, I'm, stronger than maybe the other guys in my mind. I'm a guy, and I have a, an ego. And it wasn't until like, my brother took me to the gym, and like, you're actually like having measured weights, and you're actually able to like, you're put under that stress and that like, it's like, oh yeah, like I can't do this. And like, now you're aware I need to, I need to improve.
I think you're absolutely right. And those tragedies started the molding, but it was situations like that where I actually had to test myself and question myself as well. I think my thing wasn't testing myself under those stressful moments. It was what happened after that and the people who were involved in it with me. That probably was more changing than anything, was the people who were involved in this high tragic stress moment that was a pivotal test in my life was probably more prominent in the people I was helping through it.
Were those same people in your life before the event though? For the most part, yeah. And like, so what changed was you. Like now you were instead of just like autopilot, this is who I am. Now all of a sudden it's like, for the most part, I had to change on the spot for I had to put myself to the side and help those that I cared more about. And that's what I mean by die to self. Like as well, on top of that, I had to put myself to the side and just put everyone else first just for a little while. But when I came, I was like weird. It's like I stepped out of myself for a while. Mm-hmm. It's something I have a hard time explaining, but I did. I stepped out of myself for a while, and then I got back in. I'm like, okay, this needs some rearranging. I'm really chopping that up a lot. But in those high stressful moments, like a couple of weeks ago, I had one day where I just had, dude, it's crazy. One thing after another just kept going wrong all day long. And I had moments to myself where I could punch that passenger seat next to me, slam that door, scream, but I didn't. And it's as if like I realized the highest stressful moment in my life, I gravitated back to that. And I said, this is nothing. This is nothing. I can help myself through this because I was able to help myself and others through that. And that when I felt like I changed, I felt like I had to constantly remind myself, remember, you've changed. Remember, you're not like this. Remember, you're not going to do this again. Remember, you're not going to be this person again. And that's how was that like a daily, like very conscious aware, like you're talking to yourself and like, no, this is who I am now. This is
because you kind of replay those moments in your head where you're like, oh.
No, I think that's super. I think that's brilliant. That's
like, but you go back and you watch yourself back in your head. You're just like, ugh, there's no way. Or I have a hard time watching couples argue. Like, especially if they're around people. Like that gets to me a little bit because
I can imagine it could be pretty awkward.
Well, it's very awkward. But I grew up in a home where my mom and dad never yelled at each other. Not one time. Never. So when I see that out in the real world, I still have to remind myself, hey, dude, not everyone is like you. But maybe you can be an example for that couple by not doing that. By like them saying one day, whenever 30 years from now, they're like, you know what, Seth and Catherine, I never actually heard them, they're different like that. And that's what I mean by just realizing that everything you do, whether it's a high momentum moment or a low momentum moment, matters. Whether it's to you or someone else. Someone's always watching, that quote. Someone's always watching you or something like that. So I feel like in high stressful moments, I'm able to fix myself before I overreact. Or I'm able to see something I don't like and not judge anymore. For instance, I don't like seeing couples argue in public. Well, I'm not going to judge them for that because I don't know y'all's scenario. I'm not in your shoes. So I'm able to evaluate myself a lot quicker now than I've ever been able to evaluate myself before I actually do something.
Well, I think that the evaluating yourself is you're having to be, wow, that's loud. Is you're having to be honest with yourself, and that's not very pleasant. Because I don't think there's anybody who can honestly look at themselves without any bias, and look at themselves and be like, yeah, I'm happy with who I am. Like, well, gold star for you if you can do that. Yeah. And B, I think you're lying to yourself.
Absolutely.
And so, the fact that and I like to think we both come to a place that even if we're not, all stars at it, that we're able to kind of we're able to to analyze ourselves or be honest with ourselves and like, all right, this is a really crappy part of me, and not try to justify it in our mind or make excuses. And it's like, this is who I am.
Well, you said the word. Everyone's trying to justify why they are the way they are.
Oh yeah. Well, and this is something that I kind of pinpointed, and it's nothing. This is nothing like profound. This is still, but I've just kind of really pinpointed this recently in conversations that I've had with some people. Once you and I have changed our worldview, our perspective on life, our faith, just our whole perspective on reality has changed. And some things that haven't changed have at least been open to debate or question.
Yeah.
And that's, for those things to even to be able to be questioned, shows some level of being honest with yourself. Like, okay, well, this is what I believe, and there's a hole here. Like, if I'm honest with myself, and that's scary. Mm-hmm. So I've had conversations with people a lot, and sometimes it's like, where did the conversation go wrong? Like, here we were discussing, and in my mind, we're going over very specific, like, here's the point supporting this side, and let's see them present their points on their side, and ideally you want a discussion where it's not a debate. Where you're both open to learning something from the other individual. But then it's like, immediately when there's, from my perspective, an overwhelming abundance of evidence that would suggest that there is at the very least, a reasonable doubt that your perspective or your belief on this issue mm-hmm. could be flawed. Mm-hmm. That's it. When they don't have an answer, without skipping a beat, they immediately either will attack, you for bringing it up, or the source from which it came up, with no.
Well, that's their defense mechanism.
And it's like innate. It's like in us, because we've decided subconsciously, nope, I believe this. Like, and it doesn't matter whether I have evidence, whether I don't. Like, it's my identity, it's my worldview, and therefore, it's like there's evidence against it. And it's like there is never. It's not even a moment of, well, hold on, let me see if that evidence like backs out. No, it's like trying to put a floppy disk in a CD drive. It's like nope, nothing. Yeah. And immediately, without even skipping a beat, well, obviously, and that's when I feel like, especially in conversations dealing with people's faith, it's like, if you don't believe our religious perspective, it's because you don't like the rules and you want to do what you want. It's like, I'm pretty sure, like, not like the other 80-something% of the people on the planet, it's not just because they want to do what they want to do. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of other religions that have a lot of self-discipline, mm-hmm. And it's not do it.
Some way more than others. I mean, look at the monks. Look what they do. Look at the discipline.
Do you think they're doing that because like they don't like your Christian principles, and they're like, oh, this is too hard. I want to do what I want to do. I want to go live by myself.
They live way more pure than we live.
Absolutely.
100%, 10 times over. And they have been for thousands of generations.
And whether they're wrong or right, I'm sure the motive mm-hmm. is like, well, from all the evidence that they've been given, this seems like it's the most. It seems
the most
right
relevant thing in their life.
It makes sense to them, and so, anybody who brings up evidence contrary to your belief, if your only defense is, oh well, I'm right, you just don't want to do it, and like, well,
the thing is, everyone thinks that they have to prove them wrong. Or I say, let me take that back. I don't want to speak for everybody, and I don't want to speak for every faith or every religion or every perspective. I feel like people think that if I'm a Jew, okay, and let's say you are a Mormon, and then like we just keep going back and forth. Well, the idea is not to go back and forth. The idea is to maybe you and me can learn from each other somewhere. How about we de-label our religions? Just take the labels off of them. Take the labels off. Let me take my yarmulke off. Let me just take all the labels off of everything. Everyone can learn from everybody if we don't see the labels that they wear on the outside.
Well, but yeah, I don't think it's necessarily the labels themselves, but we've already just been taught if you identify as this, then therefore you're invalid and nothing you say is valid. So before we ever start, I've discredited anything you might say.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What if we
so if you have enough self-awareness, or just to be like, no, yeah, that's what I've been taught, but I'm still gonna at least weigh everything they say and give it a shot instead of just completely disregarding them. Yeah, that's. Yeah.
But for the most part, people aren't self-aware enough to do that. So if you were to,
or they're not willing to be that vulnerable.
Whatever, yeah, all that. So if you, let's say, we are average people, you and I, or we are average Christians or whatever. So if we went into a conversation with somebody we don't know and didn't start off with religion, we didn't start off with politics, we didn't start off with any of that, we could have a conversation,
right?
But it's the flip of the coin whenever we decide to be vulnerable. I don't think Trump's going to make it. Well, you're a Trump supporter and I'm not a Trump supporter. So then what's going to... Now I put a wrench in the gears. So I have to trust that you are self-aware enough not to get defensive, and the next thing you know, you're angry or you're upset or whatever. What I'm trying to say is we can't give people too many credits for being self-aware. Not everyone is there yet. So I think when I say rip off the labels, what I'm trying to say is maybe be yourself, and it's up to them to decide. But if I know, or I have a feeling that, like, I need to have good discernment when I talk to you, like, and I feel it myself, like, you know what, maybe today is not the conversation I need to have about politics with this guy today, because I got a feeling that maybe he's not receptive enough today to hear me out. So I think discernment plays a big part. However, on the other side, you shouldn't hide who you really are. So that's why I think discernment is important when it comes to having civil conversations, especially when it comes to faith and politics. I think that, which is two things I don't talk a whole lot about, because I do understand that is people's livelihoods when it comes to faith and politics.
That's their faith, at least, like, their value system, and that's how and it's their own self-worth. And if you spend 40 years of your life, adhering to this ideology that gives you a version of, your own value, and then if there's a potential of it being invalid, then you're in fear or of invalidating, who you believe you are, and so that's too painful. That's too scary. So it's not even, it's not even up. They can't even,
what trips me up is when people are so confident in what they believe in, and then without being smug, you ask them, "Oh, that's interesting. Can you explain that to me?" And then they can't do it. What do you think that is? Why do you think it's because people get comfortable with the way that they've always been and they just choose not to change?
Well, I think when you're a kid, you form, a lot of your perspectives, and you just believe them as fact, and they're that filter that, like, when new information comes in, like, in your brain, you've got, like, truth, reality. This is the way the world is, and so now, I can sit here and tell you, if today I tell you, hey, the moon's made out of cheese, well, now you can sit there and be like, really? Like, wow. So someone milked a whole bunch of cows, and, like, then we got in a spaceship. Like, you can be like, nah, like, your filter, it's like, nah, it's not. When you're a kid, okay. And so these, whether it's a religious value or even ideologies that might one day transition into some of the political views they have or whatever it is, but their reality, it's, it's already gone through the system. It's true.
Yeah.
And to be able to go back and open the door up to that vault of everything that I know, because, that's...
So you think it starts in adolescency when people are young?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, how did you break your mold?
So, life experiences. Yeah, we talked about that. That's when all of a sudden I was like, literally like very simply put, the version of who I am and what I believe, my ideology, something's off, something's not right. It's not working. There's, and I really believe that we know deep down, like I believe that we know when we're believing a lie, whether it's our ideology, whatever it is, I believe deep down. But these moments reveal it, and I feel like, what I was going through kind of like it just laid it all out where I couldn't deny, what I couldn't, it was like, it was so obvious. It's like, okay, there's obviously something wrong here, So I don't think that everything around me, just like we talked about with you, the same people for the most part were in your life. But what happened is, well, now you were receptive. You were opened up. And so it was the same for me. And it just so happened that not long after that, like I friended people that before I never would have allowed into my circle. Yes. Instead of listening to them to give a different argument, I was like, well, I'm not so sure about what I think anymore. So I'm not going to throw it away. Right. Yeah. But I'm going to give this a fair chance. And at the very least, even if you listen to the other person and you still don't agree with anything, you at least now have a better perspective.
That's great.
You can at least understand, where these people are coming from. We have, our hard left and hard right, or extreme left, extreme right in our country. And I think on both sides, like, yeah, well, those people are just like, they just hate everybody. They're after money. They just want to get rich, and the other people are like, oh, they're just lazy. They don't want to have to work for anything. And it's like these extremes, like, well, I guarantee if you sat down and listened to them, you're like, man, they're like, a lot of them are probably the most, I believe the majority.
That's what Sarah Silverman did on her show.
Yeah.
She went out, she spoke to all these Republicans, and then she came back, she's like, I love them.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, she still was like, I think they are dead wrong.
Most of them, yeah.
But and they think that she's like, I just think they're uninformed on X, Y, and Z. She's like, but I could still have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
A friendship.
Yeah.
And but if you in your community or your circle is, we are so fearful of someone, corrupting us and leading us astray from our ideology, that not only do we live separate in how we live, but we literally separate. We're not going to go to the same schools. We're not going to go to the same activities. We're not going to go out to eat. The only way that, we're going to have a relationship is, hi at the grocery store. And I'm going to keep my circle. Well, if you only surround yourself with people that think like you will never grow.
Never.
And let's just assume that you're lucky and you are right about everything. You are not going to know. You don't know what you believe until you've been tested.
Mm-hmm.
And, excuse me, I think it's way better to actually put what you believe to the test, and that way your faith in what you believe is that much stronger. It didn't even change. What your ideas didn't change, but now you have so much more faith because of that. You've tried it, you've proved it.
It's almost like you gave your faith a backstory in a sense. Like you kind of like you look at the whole picture instead of the part you like. That's how I feel about my beliefs, is because when I used to look at just the part I'm familiar with and that I like, I didn't see the whole thing. I didn't understand, why do they do this? Why do we do that? Why does she do, or what's going on? Once I did see the whole thing, I better understood my section. I understood it better.
Yeah.
I gave my life context. I gave my whole life context.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a theory about that when you're reading. You're supposed to read the paragraph or the whatever before and after.
You're talking about in Scripture?
Oh, in Scripture, but also
reading in context.
But also like in like the things that who's that great philosopher that wrote a lot about the stars and astronomy? Started with a P. Anyway, I forget his name. Super popular guy. Anyway, I feel so dumb even just saying that. But like taking things out of context is so easy, and I think that's what people do on hard left, hard right, Christian, atheist, whatever. It's so easy.
Yeah.
To pick a side. And stick with that one little part, though, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And I feel like if we just, like you're saying, become vulnerable and allow ourselves to think, okay, what Sarah Silverman did, I'm just going to listen to everything you have to say. But when I leave here, I still have my ways. But now I feel like I understand my ways more clearly because I understand your ways.
Yeah.
And whether it's biblical or unbiblical or secular or whatever, it doesn't matter how you do it. I think it's important at least you just try. But how did you put okay, so you're saying the same, similar to what I did. When I felt like I put my foot forward with myself, I felt like every day I was hungry to learn something more about myself. When I decided to drop my walls and become vulnerable to myself or be honest with myself, I felt hungry every single day after that. How did you satisfy your hunger? Like, what did you do to feed yourself?
Well, one, I think the motivation, like what we said, is once you have the courage to be honest with yourself about who you are,
mm-hmm.
then you have, there's only two decisions. One, go back, stick your head in the sand and like, no, I don't want to look at it. And the other is like, I don't want to stay this way.
Yeah.
Like I've got to fix it. So as long as you, continually allow yourself to be honest, who you, like, I feel like, if you expose yourself to truth, I feel like almost, I don't want to say like free will isn't there. Here, this is what this is. So if I'm trying to think of an area like where it's a flaw about who you are. Let's say, okay, this is so random, but let's just say that I speed. Let's say I have a very bad habit of driving unsafe, taking chances, going too fast, and whatever.
Reckless.
So like, so I can continue living like this, and like, whatever, I'm fine. It's not whatever, I'll be fine. Just kind of tuck it away. However, like here's reality, here's truth. Is like on my dash, like I put a picture of a car crash, mangled, and individual like with their body, all just completely devastated. And that's reality. That's truth. That's the product of the recipe that I'm cooking up in my life right now. So if I put that in front of me in my dash, I guarantee you I will change my actions, or I will choose to remove it from my dash. Mm-hmm. So I believe if you put truth in front of yourself, if you make yourself aware of truth, if you like put those things in your life, then you will conform. Like you won't have a choice. The only choice you do have is to like, I'm just going to remove it. And so I think that it's the first step is like, okay, just being honest with yourself. All right, here's the problem. And as long as you consistently stay honest with yourself, you're consistently putting this truth in front of you, then you're automatically gonna start making those changes. And
but you have to do it though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's also really important for a lot of people to understand that, of course, you make all your decisions. You make all your decisions, every single one of them.
Right.
You cannot escape that. That's a major thing to understand. You, Seth Gibbs, make all of Seth Gibbs' decisions.
You're responsible.
I am responsible.
Right.
Responsibility, vulnerability, and understanding the truth. And we can make our own realities, but truth carries along all of that. Truth is in all of this.
Well, and here's the thing. Let's say you're not where you want to be in life. Let's say you're not happy, okay? And so there's two realities that you can believe. You can believe the one version that it's not my fault. It's not my responsibility. I'm here because of all of these people or my circumstance or well, if it's not you, if you're not the reason, if it's not your actions, that means it's beyond your control. That means your state, you're not in control of and so that's a hopeless situation to be in. It's like, I can't. And that's where I think a lot of people are, because it's a trade-off. You don't have to deal with the the sorrow or unpleasantness of facing your own failures and your own faults, but now you've just put yourself in a prison because now you can't do anything about it because it's, so, but if you believe that, no, I'm here, I'm in my version of hell in life because of my decisions and there are no excuses. Well, that's the best news that you could hear. That means that, well, if it's your actions that led you here, then you can fix that.
Right.
So, and I think that as long that ideology, that perspective, without even realizing it, will cause you to start making changes in your life. But however, if I want to say your truth, I don't think it's true, but if what you believe to be true is that it's everyone else, then you're going to sit around your whole life waiting for everyone else to change those, whatever you think those factors are, so you can be happy, and you never will be.
Yeah, it all comes down to personal responsibility and doing things on your own. It's like people who work for a company for 5 years and they complain about not getting a raise, and then you go and ask them, have you asked for a raise? Have you put a foot forward to get ahead? What happened with me was, and I'm assuming it's the same with you, I had received new information, yes, but I conquered my pride in myself. I still work on that every day, though. So it's not like a one-time thing where you just all of a sudden everything's like, hey, hashtag woke. From here on out, we're fine.
Yeah.
It's not that. That's not what this is. What this is a daily routine. Wake up. I'm not going to be who I was yesterday. Today, I'm going to be a better person. Tell myself this, tell myself that, and then move on. And then after that, I'm going to change how I am, whether it comes to treating people better or whatever. Another huge thing that just recently has helped me out, and something I always thought was like, I don't want to degrade it, but I always thought it was like hoofla, like, like didn't really, like, just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Is meditation. And I've been doing this, and I mean, I cannot explain to everyone how it's actually bettered me.
Who got you into that? Like,
well, it's okay. I wouldn't say an individual. What I would say was multiple individuals saying how beneficial it was in their lives.
I've heard it a lot, literally within the last few months.
But you've heard it from, I'm sure, from many people. Okay, that's what I'm trying. That's what I'm saying was, I've heard it. A friend of mine who lives down in Galliano, he opened me up to an app called the Gaia app, GAIA. So I look at that every once in a while. But I've actually been paying attention to a doctor called Dr. Andrew Weil, and another doctor called Paul Stamets. Paul Stamets is a mushroom doctor who deals with like the organic medicines of mushrooms, like lion's mane and things like that. And then
Sam Harris has an app. Have you checked that out?
No,
I haven't. I just heard him talk about it.
This Dr. Andrew Weil might even have one. I don't know. Host defense. You ever heard of host? I'm getting carried away. Let me go back to this meditation thing. Paul Stamets teaches a breathing technique called the 4-7-8 breathing technique. Inhale 4 seconds, hold 7, exhale 8 seconds. But when you exhale, you take your tongue.
That's a long time. I'm like, all right, I'm just holding.
When we're done with this, we'll get the posture that we're supposed to sit, and we'll do it. And I'm telling you, it's euphoric. It's almost like you're high or something. But it's what they call it, an altered state of consciousness.
Okay, we're probably speeding up too fast. I'm not allowing you to finish your point.
It's fine. Yeah.
Is it? So I heard, I don't know how many people talking about this. I think, I don't think it was Sam Harris. Maybe it was. But recently, a lot of talks about this, and they've compared it to, they're talking about the psychedelic experiences from psilocybin or DMT, and that meditation it's harder to get to that state of consciousness, but it is doable.
It's possible because we actually have DMT, I think, in our hypothalamus or
hypothalamus.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't want to say where it is,
idea.
but I want to say it's in us. We have it in our heads. So everything is accessible through something. So there's a path to get to that point. And DMT is also released in minute amounts whenever you're dreaming to allow you to have like really vivid, deep, realistic dreams and stuff. Yes. So with this meditation, the meditation is not a route for me to get to get this DMT experience, but what it is for me
is it to get just openness.
If I were to say everything it does, you would need to just digest each one for like 10 minutes. If I told you everything it does, I wouldn't just want you to hear what I'm saying. I would want you to experience with what I'm saying.
Right.
Openness, clarity, upliftingness, relief, prospecting, like looking forward to things. It's an altered state of consciousness to sum it all up in one big go. And it's something that you if you've been your best self your whole day and you meditate, it's so peaceful, it's so uplifting. If you've been your worst self all day and you meditate, you feel peaceful, you feel uplifted. It's no matter how good or how bad your day was, when you meditate and when you take that time and you do your meditation that's best for you, you feel through just wavelengths of euphoric feeling and also peaceful feeling. You just become another version of your best self. Whether you've been your worst self or your best self, meditation even takes you a notch above all of that. And that's what it does for me. And also allows me, and I used to have not a really bad anger problem, but like a tantrum issue where like I just get like mad at something or pissed off. I just throw something or I just go, oh, like that. Or I just like whatever, just like small little things. I find myself not doing that at all. And through meditation, I feel like I'm actually de-stressing. I need to start doing this more often. Exercise does that a lot. Exercise allows you not to overreact as much. But meditation is a physical altering feeling I actually get. I actually feel it. And the breathing exercise I've been doing for a little while, meditating for a little while, but it's a daily thing now. And this breathing exercise I told you about, I do it when I open my eyes, I lay in my bed, I do it. And then throughout the day, whenever, I just do it.
Do you ever, this is a very, I feel like this is a laughable question, but do you ever struggle with staying awake when you're trying to meditate?
No, because I don't meditate laying down.
Okay. I definitely foresee on my schedule having that.
The best way to meditate is sitting straight up without a backrest, because you're having to hold yourself in that posture. And I think what that kind of does is that like keeps your brain telling your body, dude, keep that balance.
We're up. We're awake.
Yeah, we're up. We're sitting upright.
Yeah.
You know? And then you know how they sit with their legs crossed?
Yeah.
It actually puts more balance action on, like,
it takes more work to.
It does. It actually a little more effort.
You have to engage your core.
Or you can, like, I like to put my back against the wall because I don't ever get tired, but like I feel like I don't have to focus as much as keep my balance. So like I'm able to relax a little bit more. But yeah, man, it's unreal how well it's helped me out. It really has. And it's got all the benefits above and beyond what you think it would have, and it just does that much more for you. Even if you've been your best self all day, you know, it just takes you even above that.
I'd be intrigued. I'm definitely intrigued, and this is for the last few months. You know, it's come up so often, and it's like, all right, it's just a matter of time before I really give this a good shot. But because so oftentimes when it's brought up, it is brought up in some kind of comparative sense to a psychedelic experience. You know, I think that we just talked about people being open, you know, right? Like, this is how I think. And then it's like, well, hey, just think about this, you know, like, no, this is what I think, you know, I'm not going to, is that I think it was Jordan Peterson who cited a study, and the specifics of this, I'm going to butcher, but I'm pretty confident that it was from only one psychedelic trip. So it was I don't remember the dose they gave of psilocybin, Not everyone that was in the study experienced the trip, right? The
hallucinations.
Yeah. But for the ones that did, they all experienced, and they had some way that they gauged. It wasn't just openness. There was something else he termed it as, but it was for the sake of this conversation, it was just being open to new ideas and something, but it was something openness. I don't remember what the term was, but they all moved down one whole level or increased one whole level on being more open. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it depends on what you're being open to, I guess. But I think I definitely know that if you're not open, you're never going to grow. You're never going to change. So, but everyone, it was like across the board. They all had this new, they all changed as far as their ability to be open to new ideas. And the people that I've talked to, they haven't said it in those precise terms. But I feel like in their own way, they've also said that since meditating, they've been very open to other things that in areas they would have never grown in had they not meditated.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, and now I understand what you're saying now.
Yeah.
I understand that because I have been trying to stay meditative. You can also meditate in the state. I just would be very careful, like while you're driving. It's almost like,
can you do that? I wouldn't have tried while driving.
It's like a way. Okay, it's embracing silence.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe
which is hard.
Well, is it? You have to let yourself do it.
It's who's the guy who played not the current Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield.
Yeah. I hated those movies. I hated them so much. They were love stories, every single one of them.
Well, I thought that he did a great job.
Yes, he did.
And I'm a really big fan. I don't think I've seen him in anything that was not outstanding as far as his performance.
Yeah.
The sad thing is the movie the project that he was on, I have not seen, but he was I think he was talking to like Stephen Colbert, and I think he was playing a Jesuit monk or priest. I'm going to butcher this obviously, but in preparation, I don't remember the name of the guy that he went with, the guy who played wow, my Star Wars knowledge is like crumbling here. Harrison Ford's son. I'm sorry, Han Solo, the character of Han Solo's son, Ben Solo. Is that what his name is in the Star Wars movie?
Yeah.
That character, whoever the actor,
Adam.
Yeah, whatever.
Something.
Yeah. They both. I think that it was those two individuals, and they went. Whatever. Long story short, to prepare for this role, they went to go spend a week or something with these monks, and they had to do like 7 days of silence. They weren't allowed to speak, and they were alone. No phone, no anything.
They were
Andrew
alone
Garfield
with no company.
Yeah, I think they were alone.
Solitude. You talking about?
I think solitude. I think like the monks would bring them food or whatever, but it was just like, for the most part, whatever version of it, they could not speak.
Yeah.
And they were alone. And
I read about a journalist who did that.
And he talked about how dark it got, like just in his mind.
Oh, in his mind.
But then just how it was like without even from what I got from it, and Andrew Garfield, if you're ever listening to the Booggie Broadcast, if I'm misquoting you, I apologize. From what I got, it was like there was some dark things that in his mind, but it was like, he's sitting there, like he wasn't actually doing anything actively. It's not like you do something like, here, I built this, whatever. Like if you had looked at him, you'd think that, he did nothing for 7 days, but like internally, like, he was like it's like, cleaning out your mind. So like by the time he was done, he said he felt like it was so pure, so clean, so purified. So just, that like, I think that, and it wasn't meditation, but even just getting alone and being quiet, I think it forces you to kind of, I guess, be more aware of who you are and all your thoughts. And I think that it's very uncomfortable. And that's why in our society today, man, we can't, and I, guilty, have music playing, a podcast going, anything but silence.
That's so strange you're saying that, because I recently, well, not recently, apologies, since I've been doing this job that I'm doing where I travel a lot, I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I seize moments to capture my silence when I'm driving.
Well, I think, but absolutely,
I'm still doing
but I feel like
something,
I feel like 5 years ago version of Seth.
No,
would
man,
exactly.
I had to be doing something, listening to something. Yeah.
And the thing is that you have to like purposely, once you start doing that and you experience the results and like, oh, I'm changing, then yeah, even though it's not necessarily like, there's no way that doing that is as fun as, watching your favorite TV show. It's not as fun. It's not as enjoyable. It's not as entertaining. It's not as pleasant. However, because you've done it, like, you realize there's more value in it. And so because of that, like, I don't know if it's enjoy, but you do find joy, you find satisfaction and more fulfillment in that activity than something else that might bring you more pleasure in the present.
Unless it has to do with knowledge, I do agree. I think that I find it more enjoyable to enjoy the silence or the moment where I can reflect or meditate or something. Now that's way more enjoyable than anything I do. Transparent moment here. I have a hard time staying interested in TV shows now, though.
What shows are you watching?
Well, okay, I'll tell you what shows I'm watching, but I can tell you this. I can't binge watch. I can't do it. I cannot.
Maybe you're watching the wrong shows.
Well, okay, I tried to binge watch Peaky Blinders, and I couldn't do it. I had to break it up.
Yeah, me too, though.
Peaky Blinders is one of my favorite TV shows, though. So, okay, let me allow you to be Seth for a moment.
Okay.
I love Peaky Blinders. So it's a TV show that I loved. Okay? But the one that I agape, okay, the one above all, I can't sit down and watch more than 3 or 4 episodes of The Office. I can't, even though I've seen them all. If we went back, even when Netflix came out, okay, with The Office, I didn't see a lot of episodes. So I didn't seek out that and just watch all the ones I haven't watched yet. I cannot do that now that I am like a little bit more at ease with myself. When I started Game of Thrones way late too, though. So I started Game of Thrones 3 years ago.
Right.
No. 2. I got married on the 18th. I started watching a month after that. So about 2 years, exactly a month after that. Okay, 2 years ago, I couldn't even binge watch that. Now that's work. Okay, but I couldn't even binge watch.
And do you think it's because you don't find there's not the knowledge and the value in it? Is that what you're saying? Okay, you know what?
Yes.
So I drive 10 hours whenever I spend my weekend with my son. So it's a 10-hour drive there and a 10-hour drive back. And so recently on the last few, what you said, I used to either have, Netflix playing in the background or something to check, and before I felt like I kind of did that for the majority of my drives. And now, I can't, it's like you said, it's not that it's not entertaining and I don't love the show.
Yeah.
But I think maybe we're both growing up and, or something, we're recognizing and this is just, there's zero. I need to. Okay, do you ever just feel like if there's enough time goes by during the day and you have not either accomplished something or something of value has not, that has not given you,
I get irritated.
I'm wasting,
unsettled.
Yeah.
And
that's not, and obviously, I imagine that it wouldn't take, if I worked really hard, I'm pretty sure I could go back to not caring. But as of now, it's a very, like you said, unsettling.
It's very unsettling because you reflect back and see what you did throughout your whole day and you're like, ugh, Like, that's what I did? Well, okay, to accomplish something, though, that there's a level there for each individual. Accomplishing something for me would be, did I meditate today? Did I talk to my wife enough today? Did I talk to a friend today? I check on so-and-so who has been doing good. Like, though, that's accomplishments throughout a normal day for me. It's just making sure that I'm being my true self. Like, am I doing, did I do something for someone else? Did I do something for myself? Which one of those two things haven't I done yet? And then maybe do that. That would help me feel like I had a better day. But also, I have to do stuff with my hands a lot too, though. So I've been getting a little bit better at understanding that it's not what I physically do. It's just that what I do for myself and what I do for others. But I used to be where, like, if I didn't paint a car or make a piece of furniture or sculpture or work on a bike or work on my car or something, I felt like I was like, oh, I didn't do nothing today. Well, but now that I'm more mature, I realize that the more important things are making sure you do something for yourself or for someone else. And
it doesn't have to be this physical material object.
It used to be before my change.
Well, that's probably what, but you did that since y'all were building stuff. I mean, how old were y'all when y'all were?
I remember, well, from what I remember and what I was told was we first welded something when we were 8. Well, I don't know about Isaiah, but Luke and I think we were 8 years. He was 7, I was 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we just kind of,
and I think when you find something that you're good at, I feel like, and you get praise, and y'all did. I mean, and not just from your family, like y'all have a whole community with that very quick, that without even realizing, like you start to kind of like, you find a little bit of your value in that activity in these things that you do. And so, I mean, not completely, but whereas if you don't do that version of you that gets that value from.
And there are a lot of people that connect themselves to us. So yeah, I guess what you're saying, or what I get out of that is even still to this day, when I do finish something, I feel accomplished because I see everyone else who feel maybe a sense of satisfaction of, wow, that I'm so glad to see them still doing something, or they might feel connected to us because, and we try to be good people, but I think what it really is like even if like it's the little things is what I'm trying to say. I make these little lamps now, and like people ooh and ah, and they can't believe it.
Right.
But like I don't do it for them. I really do it for myself because I feel accomplishment. But it's so nice that other people actually get a sense of enjoyment out of it as well. I get that when I still watch Jesse James, the guy from West Coast Shoppers. I get so excited when I see him do something, and I'm so glad he's still doing it because he's been doing it. He was one of our main sources of inspiration, and he's still doing it, and he's almost 60 years old. And just to see him keep going, keep doing these things and not stopping, well, then I'm like, well, man, I don't want to stop either. I want to keep going. I want to keep doing these things, create new avenues of enjoyment for myself, but also like actual things that come to fruition. I mean, I want to keep doing this. I don't want to stop. I want to keep going and keep going and keep going, and maybe going back to the binge watching thing, I said that to say this. I don't understand people that don't want to be accomplished in life, that do the things that they're told to do the things that their mom or dad used to do, or do the things that they were told to do by so-and-so. This is your normal. This is what you do. Mortgage, car notes, Netflix subscriptions, for a 9-to-5 job, whatever. This is what you do. This is what you're supposed to do, blah, 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 blah. No, a lot of people are changing. A lot of people are switching that. But there's still a lot of people out there that I find so fascinating. There's someone I'm pretty close to that's like that. Wake up, go to work, come home, don't have any hobbies, don't have anything they're living for, nothing they're working towards. And it's like when they're done with their work day, they just sit idle. And it agitates me because I'm like, I'm going to go over there, like my hands jitter, like I want to push you, like I want to, come on, do something. Let's go. Do this.
But I think it's 100% on what you believe is reality. Okay, for instance, if I told you that the state that you are in, you have no control over it. It's dictated from the government and the society and the constructs that have been, and that's what's dictated what's dictated your place in life. and not you. This is it. It's you don't have any place. Not only that is that, you don't owe anything anybody. Like, you don't have any responsibility to, you just have to look out for yourself. In fact, not only do you not owe the community around you, honestly, they owe you. Well, if this is what you believe, well, then why strive? Because it's pointless. Because that's what you believe.
Yeah.
So if you believe that you will fail if you try, well, then you're not gonna try. And, if you believe you don't have a responsibility, to yourself or those around you, then and that's what I feel like that's that pivotal point that we talk about where that in life where, and I'm not, I don't want to be too harsh.
I guess that's why you have entertainers and those that are being entertained is to not, that's a dumb way of putting it, but it's a dumb down way of putting it. But without some of those people that do strictly not have drives or anything, for people like us, we're the ones maybe feeding them secretly. So I said that to say this. That's a fear of mine, to become complacent, become idle.
Oh, absolutely.
Stationary. And
to stop growing. Yeah.
And it bothers me, not in a judgmental sense, but it bothers me because I feel like, man, I just wish I could do something for you, man. I wish I could give you something just to, like, not live for, but just something more. There's more than just this. There's more than just what we're doing. And not to say that you'd have 10, 20 things going on at one time. Doesn't it feel good when you do have multiple things that you are doing? I don't know if you're like that. Do you like multitasking?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's almost like a rush.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I got to get this done. Like this podcast, like doing this podcast. I drove from Gulfport to Baton Rouge, set up for my trade show, called you, set this up, doing this now. When this is over, process it, edit the audio for the formats, and then upload
you still got your own work from the trade show to do. And
just keep going, man. Just don't stop. Yeah. And on top of all that, I want to start doing more things. I almost like, I get high off of that stuff, man. I love that. And when I see someone that, like, they might say, like, okay, someone asks me, why are you doing this podcast thing? Well, because I want to. Well, but why? Because I enjoy it. Okay, but why? I can't explain to you why I enjoy something.
Were they, okay, I'm fishing for an answer here, so transparency. But were they almost kind of like critical, like, are you just trying to get attention? Are you just trying, like, was it almost a negative, or do you feel like it was a sincere, like, hey, I really want to know?
No, I felt like they were trying to maybe figure out, like, maybe they were asking me to find the answer they were looking for.
But do you think they were looking for almost like a bad answer? Like why are you doing this? Like they're like they thought it was a waste of time.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like that you have very few people in your life, and this is not original with me for sure. I'm repeating other people who are a lot smarter than I am, but you have to be very, very, very careful who you share your dreams and hopes and accomplishments with. Because most people they are incapable, because of whatever their perspective is, of seeing anything other than, like, they only see thing in values of, can this benefit me and my self-image and it's all about them. And if it does, your accomplishments, as long as if it doesn't feed them, then there's no value to it. And the only thing is, if you're successful at something, all it's doing is exposing, them that they're not, And so it's like I know there's several individuals that I know really well, and where they're in these close relationships with other people who have made a change to, like, be healthier versions, and, like, they started changing what they eat and, like, going to the gym and everything. And here are these individuals bettering themselves every day. Well, these other people, and they are so skeptical.
Yeah.
It's so critical of the person who's like, oh, and they're like, changing, like, can't eat that, whatever. And it's like, oh, you think you're ever going to actually be this? It's like, no, but we're not going to stay here. But I can work
towards it, yeah.
And it's like, well, why are you so critical? Do you really think it's an unhealthy choice? No, they don't like how it exposes, where they're at. And to end it with this, going back to what I said, is you be careful, because most people aren't very encouraging. Most people in life aren't. They're not going to speak life into you. But the thing is that if you share your hopes, your dreams, your accomplishments, or whatever it is, and they respond negatively, it's almost impossible to not let that affect you.
Well, I think I did good by not letting it affect me a lot, because when they said that, a twinkle in the eye or something, but like, maybe they don't understand, and maybe that's their way of saying to me, hey, I don't understand why you're doing this. Maybe like what you said earlier, was it this or was it that? I think it was a little bit of both, possibly, because people fear what they don't understand, and maybe they were looking at like, I just don't understand, like, why are you doing this? What benefit do you get out of this? Like, are you getting paid? Or is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? And some people just have a hard time seeing that you might just enjoy doing stuff. When it's work to them, to me, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy painting cars. It's a lot of work. I don't do it very much anymore, but I still enjoy doing it. Well, for some people, that's like, oh, that's too much work. I'll just pay somebody to do it. For those that are work, to some, it is fun. But I also feel like sometimes I might get just lucky enough to where I can convert you, or I can allow you to convert yourself into understanding why I do this.
Right.
So I possibly could give you the opportunity to understand. And maybe I was able to do that with this individual. I don't have a whole lot of negative reports, but this is a very uncommon thing with people that you and I know. What we're doing.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who does this.
Well, I mean, it's just the way that we're talking to each other.
Oh.
Openly sharing it with everyone else.
Yeah.
On a platform that possibly could lead to other things. Around here in this area, it's not a very familiarized thing.
Right.
People like, do you know how many times I've asked someone, like, what podcast do you listen to? What's a podcast?
Right.
I mean, it's just, and now that's not to blame them for not keeping up with technology, to say the least. But to say the most, I only do this because I like to do it. And I don't need credibility from other people, but I enjoy when I do get it.
Right.
I enjoy. That's my reward right now. I don't get paid. It's not making money. I spent money to do this. Right now, I just wanted to start doing it because I like it. I want to do this. This is what I wanted to do, on top of everything else that I'm doing. Because this is not a platform, or this is not something I'm trying to do to prove a point to a bunch of people. This is something I'm trying to do to prove a point to me that I was capable of doing this. And now that I'm here, I have my foundation, and constant growth is going to start here. From here on out, it's just it's just going to keep growing.
I think it's everyone sets up structures in their life that help them evolve. And, trying to think, okay, even if it's, you go to whatever your religion is, you go to church 3 times a week or twice a week, whatever it is, you have these times set aside. We have this structure where you're allowing, to be open to getting something that's going to help, to maybe expose where you're deficient or you're weak or you need to grow, whatever. There's countless different structures or platforms or whatever you want to call it in your life that allow you to evolve. And I think, not just as a podcast, not just for your listeners, but for yourself, it's a very unique and very, I feel like, incredibly profitable thing for you to go through, because not only are you here, as you're, talking about what your ideas are, you're in the moment processing them, and like sometimes you don't even realize exactly what you think until you said it out loud, and you're articulating to your own self like your own thoughts and ideas. You're talking to someone else, and either You're putting it out there, and I'm just one person who either is gonna like, yeah, I agree. Like whenever you have an idea, especially if it's new, like, well, how do you test it? Well, one, you compare it to all the other evidence that you've experienced in your life, and like, well, it seems rational. It's holding up. Well, let me put it out here and see how everyone else. Yeah. And then you're like, well, everyone else seems to agree. It seems like it might be true. However, you might put something out there, and everyone's like, whoa, and everyone's like, that's and they dish it, and they have reason to do so, and you're like, I was wrong. Yeah. And so here you are, like it's completely vulnerable. You're putting yourself out there. The only, this can only be, there's so much potential, for you or anyone who's hosting a podcast like this, because it's not just the other person you're talking to, but all your listeners and their comments and all the feedback they get. What an amazing structure. Okay, here's another one where when I went through the medical program at Fort Bragg, at the end of every 6-week class, we all peered and wrote, peer reviews of everyone else in the class. And, there were times when we finished and I got these reviews, and it was not very flattering of who I was.
Did each person write about each person?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you knew but it wasn't signed.
Okay.
So you were able to,
anonymous.
Anonymous. Yeah. And when I got back in, the majority of the class didn't have a very high, opinion of me. And your first reaction, right, is just be like, well, obviously the majority of my class are really horrible human beings who have poor judgment, right? Like, obviously. And then, but here's how lucky I was to be an opportunity where I was put in a position to get feedback from all the people in my environment.
That's incredible, though. That's rare opportunity.
How, but I don't, and I feel like I was just there where I feel like for the most part at first, I just completely disregarded all the feedback. And then I was like, wait a minute, what are the odds that I'm right and everyone else is wrong? And that obviously seems, very improbable. And which was like, all right, well, let me reevaluate. And that's another, experience or something, but I feel like this is very similar, where you've put yourself out there and you've created a platform where you get to hear different ideas and different, and then everyone's feedback when you put yours out there. So I think it's really, I'm intrigued by the whole thing. Now I listen to Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, and Sam Harris, and then Ben Shapiro gets in there a good bit.
Every once in a while, I'll chime in with him. He's all of those guys are super, super wealthy in knowledge, and there is something from all of them. Everyone
and
can
they
learn.
All have areas where they completely disagree.
Oh yeah.
100%. But
well, that's like this. You don't watch the same kind of TV shows all the time. You watch crime, drama, thriller, comedies, whatever. But you all enjoy something about it. But when it comes to learning knowledge, it's so funny. People hated going to grade school, but when you go to college, some people fall in love with learning, but they wait until they get into college to do that. My theory now in life is fall in love with it now. Figure out what it is you love to learn about. Psychology, sociology, physics. Physics are fascinating, or fall in love with all of it. Fall in love with knowledge in general.
Knowledge, period. Knowledge, period. Truth.
Don't pick and choose. Just fall in love with knowledge itself. Watch yourself change. You will change, whether you attempt it or not, to change yourself. If you fall in love with knowledge, you will change, and for the better, most cases, if you're able to discern what kind of knowledge you soak up or dish out. One thing, the last thing I want to talk about is your new thing that you're trying to do. Your
What's that?
Your path that you put yourself on, your music career. What is that? So
that
you
started.
So you have beginning stages. Well, you've done other things in the past. Your spoken word, which is fascinating,
right?
Fantastic, and now you're choosing to go towards a music path. But you have a unique opportunity to like really like show or document like with other people like what you're doing. So explain that.
Well, so I think it's and I think that the spoken word stuff was a incredible step in the evolution to getting to this point.
And that's how you look at it, like a beginning step.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I definitely think had I not gone through that part, then I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing now. And it's been a long time coming, but there were so many people that were involved, and so many people I happened to meet at very pivotal moments when I started, really, you know what there. So one, I think that this was when I was listening to a lot of podcasts. I heard, who was it? Matthew McConaughey said something, right? He's really good at, I think he could say almost anything though, and it sound profound, right?
Yeah.
But I won't forget, he said this, and he said, I'm gonna mess this up a little bit, but the gist of it was, happiness is a reaction to an outcome in your environment. It's beyond your control. So if your goal is to be happy, you'll spend the majority of your life disappointed. And this is what I thought was good. He said, joy is what you experience when you find yourself doing what you are fashioned to do. And it was very pivotal because I had just finished a song that I had been working on. And when I had finished it, it all came together and everything just, and it's almost, it's almost transcendent, like how it comes together. Like, where did you almost can't believe that it came together perfectly. Like it was almost beyond you. And I thought how I felt in that moment of accomplishing that, he nailed it. Joy is what you experience when you find yourself doing what you're fashioned to do. And it's like nothing else mattered, that I still have joy in this. And then going down that road, you're very, anytime you try something new, like you have to be willing to be a fool, because if you're trying something new, that means you're not a professional at it. You're not proficient. So you have to be willing to fail and mess up. And so during that time though, at least I was very unsure of, here I'm going in this, I don't know. And I just so happened to, I'm gonna try to think some key people, a really good friend of mine, Crystal Jenkins, who's one of the best people on the planet, just super, super, what's the word? Very, very genuine. Mm-hmm. And she, she's able to, she remember the people I talked about who, if it's not of value to me, then that's it, and she really, when you meet people, you have the decision to either speak life into them or death into them. Everyone has the potential of all the best versions of them. Yeah. And either your words can help bring those to life, or, someone's like, oh, I want to be this. And it's like, oh, nah, dude, you cannot do that. That's way too hard. Well, you just all these potential versions, you just eliminated from their potential timeline. And that she was a really key person. She had, some involvement in Nashville and some record labels, and so her time there. And so that was a key individual. And then I happened to, and it was just by chance, met a guy named Mr. Eric at a local music store here, who I hooked up with on kind of working with my guitar playing to another level. And
so you're talking about progressing your
and it wasn't just the musical skills, it was even one of the songs, you've heard My God, My Guitar and Me, is his story. And whenever I'd go there, it would be guitar lessons, but then it would be these truths. He'd sit down and he'd kind of give me his life lessons. And it was just, you could not help but feel like I'm meant to be here. This was fate. Like the things that he's telling me it's definitely like a transcendent experience. So that's all awesome. These key individuals there along the way that helped shape the process of how I write, where I get the ideas from. And I think as far as just the skill set, I think the spoken word just helped me with just lyrically, with my vocabulary and writing skills. But another individual who I can't help but think about him when I think about like my own doctrine of writing, why or how I go about it. But he said, you've heard my songs. It's all country music. But he said a country song doesn't have to be true, but it must always be honest. And so I have, kind of like a checklist when I write, is that, all right, so this song has to contain a truth. It has to be something, there's a truth in there. So, for the most part, I think everything they've written so far is very literal, true stories, either my experience or people someone else's. Right, that I'm close with. But they're completely true stories. But whether they're true or not, if it could be a fictitious story that you're doing to relate a truth. But not only does it have to have something true in it, I could sit here and talk to you about all the bad things that have happened in my life, and that's true, but there's no value in that. And so it has to be a truth that is easily digestible by the audience to have something of value, to their lives.
So let me stop you there. Do you think a lot of the country songs are simplified because of that? Simplified in this, not in a verbal sense or a vocabulary sense, but simplified to daily life.
When I'm talking about being easily digestible?
Yes.
Okay, I wouldn't even say that the majority of country music, not to, like, everyone has their own doctrine or what their belief, what they value. Me personally, this is how this is what gives me meaning and satisfaction to in my writing at the moment. If I wrote a song that didn't have that meaning and you paid me $1 million, then I might have a different opinion. I don't know. But this is what how I write. But I do think it's important. I will say that I do think that a lot of the songs in country music, especially some of the older ones, and there's still a lot today, but they're very simple truths. They break it down, and I think that I think that's very very important, because I think for the most part, when a therapist sits down and tries to talk to someone and help them with their life's a mess, the therapist that I've talked to, they say they're like, well, our process is not by telling them, well, here's where you're wrong, and you need to do this. They actually sit there and ask them, okay, what's the problem? Well, why do you think that is? Well, what do you think's causing that? Well, do you think there's anything you could do to stop that? Like, and at the end of the counseling session, they've solved the problem themselves, and they knew the answer. They knew the answer to all the questions. They didn't take the time to sit there and go through it. It's like they knew the truth of what they needed to do.
They just needed kind of a guide.
But the way that they were perceiving it wasn't super obvious to them.
I see.
And so what that therapist does is try to make the truth, like, it's where it's super obvious and they're aware, oh, this is the problem. Let me pinpoint it, but the person's doing it themselves. And so, I do think, music, and it's not just the genre of country music, but I think if you can take a truth and you can put it in a way where it just connects, the light comes on, where it's easily digestible, is, I guess, my term, then you've done something of value. And I definitely would say I've experienced that in the past. What we just talked about, of being honest, with yourself. One of the songs is called, If I'm Honest with Myself. And it talks about, all the different things that we seemingly go to hide from the unpleasant truth. And it starts off, this bottle of Jack is my best friend. He makes me forget all the places I've been, but I like the way he whispers to me. And it talks about all the different vices and the different ways we escape from our reality because it's too painful to face. But the thing is that the demons and dragons in your life, when you ignore them, they just get bigger.
Yeah.
And so they're more obvious. And so you have to find bigger and better things to distract you. So that's when you go after, like, I don't know, maybe the harder drugs, or you just, a plethora of, empty relationships that are just there to distract you, from yourself. And, but eventually there's no escape, because even at the highest of high, that there's still that voice inside, whatever that is, like, you can't get away from. And so there is no escape. And so until your life is over, there's no way out. And so the only solution to get out of the hell that you're in, I think the last line of the song says, the only way to crawl out of this hell is if I'm honest with myself. And so if in this song, that truth is communicated, people are in their life and it's like, oh man, and I've got to, then, I need to put myself in order. Well, then, holy cow, and I know, I don't think there's anything that's in my songs that aren't in, others, that aren't there. But I hope that, I've put mine in a way that maybe there's some audience that will listen, that wouldn't have heard it somewhere else. And then they can take those truths and then apply it to your life.
Yeah, you can hear the same message 2 different ways, and then 20 different people will understand it all differently. They'll get it from 2 separate messages. I'm built that way. So what are you looking at, like, before people can actually hear your songs?
So right now we just finished everything to have all the content for our first album. And so we just started, I think 2 weeks ago in the studio.
I think when you FaceTime me, you were doing that.
Yeah. And I'm with Nelson Blanchard. He's there in Baton Rouge. And I've only known, it's been a couple weeks. One of the most gracious guys, super talented, unbelievable. And how I meet these people, like how I get connected with these individuals, is just beyond me. It
sounds like you're on the right road to get where you need to go.
But it's exciting because literally I wanted to do this. It's almost a year now. And I remember thinking, I think after just a few weeks of writing and realized how long, before I would write a song within a couple hours. And now, as like, I would like to say the depth or the quality or the content of the songs that I've written have improved. Like I'll spend weeks of hours a day while I'm at work, while I'm at driving, just going over them again and trying to just really, like, how can I communicate this, the best way, and it takes weeks and some songs even months. And so it's been almost a year to come up with, one album's worth of songs. And so to get to this point where you're getting in the studio and you get to hear, a finished product, that's exciting. But it'll probably be, I think before like the first single is released, and I'll just as we
with your single coming though, you got a music video that's going with that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you'll have,
at least for the first few, the ones that we're gonna release first, there'll be a music video for at least the ones that we have picked out right now. And so they'll be on Facebook and, what portions you can put on Instagram and YouTube and all those platforms. But should be within the next few weeks, we'll release the first single. And then from there, just as fast as we can get all of our content together, just one at a time over the next.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been, I can't even so many hours and days and so much.
Well, all it's going to do for you is just make you feel like a better version of yourself. When you get this going, you get this done. But imagine how many people are involved with you. I'm super excited for you.
It's been a community that started like, there's a lot of individuals, and I can't take credit, this is, my journey or so. And like you said, like this podcast, it's something that you just were compelled, that you felt like you needed to do, if not for anybody else, for yourself. And likewise, it's been very therapeutic for me, and obviously, hopefully it's, beneficial for the other people.
You have all my support. The sun is setting behind us. Yeah. I think it's a good time.
How long have we been doing this?
I don't know. I don't actually have a timer or nothing. I just kind of like let it run. So if I had to guess, maybe like an hour and 40 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So
So is this podcast 3?
This is number 5.
Okay.
This will be number 5. Yeah.
So the next one will be us and like, meditation pose for an hour. We're just in silence.
Yeah.
And it'll be very beneficial for the audience.
Well, when we finish this up, I'm going to show you what I do. And it's it's amazing.
All right.
Thanks for coming on, Steven.
I appreciate it.
Me. All right, dude. Love you, man.
Love you too.